Fast food workers' rights group, which has been critical of McDonald's in the past, saying, in its words, it's clear McDonald's culture is rotten from top to bottom. Based on this, I guess, a lot of employees are there. Not sure we really need to. Anyway, joining us now with more reaction to McDonald's firing, its CEO, Eric Dezenhall of Dezenhall Resources, and CNBC senior markets commentator Mike Santoli. That's a little bit of a stretch, I think, Eric, but it does tarnish the company to some extent. Let's talk about what it means, though, for shareholders and in general. I go back a long way with Jeff Sonnenfeld was talking about all the CEO turbulence at McDonald's, and there were a couple of unexpected deaths, if you remember. Right. People that didn't seem really to fit into the long-term strategy of the company, that didn't succeed as CEOs, but the company does keep plugging away to,
That's right.
in terms of result. Is that what we should assume, that it's not about one person? Because he was a pretty good executive, this guy. He turned it around.
I think we have to talk about what kind of crisis this is. This is a human frailty scandal, not a corporate character crisis. And it's one of the easier type of scandals to get out of, which is you bounce the person who caused the problem. I mean, one of the questions I get a lot is, why don't these people fight? And the answer is, in this climate, you can fight, but if you fight, there is only one story, and that's the scandal. And so what you find is you have chief executives and spokespeople on TV saying things like, let me explain to you why the relationship happened. And, well, that doesn't go anywhere good. So you bounce the CEO, and that story is out of the news. So ultimately, it ends up becoming a story of corporate results, because as much as we all would like to think we're historically significant, very few of us are. And if a new executive comes in his place and the results are good, it's really the end of the scandal.
What do you think, Mike?
I think something. Yeah, I mean, the question right here is how much of an Easterbrook premium was there in the stock? And I think there has been a significant one, but probably waning over the last couple of years. I think the strategy that's been put in place has gotten enough results. Stock, also benefited from just being one of these quality, steady American brand names, dividend and all the rest of it. Yes, it's outperformed the stock market by double, basically, since Easterbrook has been there since early 2015.
And it was underperforming. It was underperforming under Don Thompson, and he had some initiatives that went nowhere. This guy came back in and said, I'm going to do faster, fresher. You're going to get, the digital ordering. It just the P's and Q's. It wasn't It wasn't yogurt and fruit,
and that was
lattes.
Under Don,
but that's
way
true.
Too many things.
But that was 2 years ago. That was the stuff that was in place 2 years ago. Now, arguably, you're getting to the harder stuff. Value is driving so much of volume in fast food, and the relationship with the franchisees, always amazingly important at McDonald's. Nobody talks about it that much. They're kind of the customer.
There are two takes on Wall Street today. You've got BTIG maintaining its price target, still loves it, is overweight this stock. Piper says that it's cutting its rating to a neutral. It's cutting its price target, I think, to 195 from 224, and says, look, anytime there's a transition like this, it does run a big risk and tends to be pretty disruptive. What do you think?
I think for Piper, it's almost more a read on how investors are going to absorb it than it is what's exactly going to happen at the company. Obviously, this is not a methodical succession plan, even though the median tenure of a CEO in the S&P is like 5 years right now. He was there 4 years, but it just wasn't teed up the way you would expect. So I do think there'll be a little bit of I guess, friction in the transition.
Hey, Eric, we were talking about this in the last hour with Jeff Sonnenfeld. Do you think another CPG, some kind of restaurant company or other business can and will or should ever hire Steve Easterbrook?
Oh, I think that you see evidence that when time goes by, somebody can come back. You see that happened with Mark Hurd to great effect, but time is a variable here. If you go away for a while, I do think that has a way of cooling things down. What you can't do is go from one hot situation to the other. But I think if he takes a few years time away, I do think that there's a chance he could come back in some other form. But you also have to keep in mind that we're dealing with a climate where in the Me Too era, people just don't want to take risks. But I don't think that it sounds like these allegations, even though I don't know how serious they are, they don't seem to be terribly exotic in the way that would be a complete career ender.
Exotic. That's an interesting.
Well, we'll probably find out pretty soon, I would think.
I think we will.
Backstory. And, you know, and if it's on face value, then, yeah, I mean, it's really just about broker corporate policy. And you have to stick to the policy if that's the way it went.
I was going to tie it to some extent, Eric, to Me Too, but then I do remember Stone Cipher at OM, and that was more than 15 years ago. And it wasn't that different. CEOs have to think about that they're at the very top, so they have some power over everyone beneath them. So there's just no way that it can't be a harassment issue. It can't really be consensual, can it?
And there is no spectrum now. The difference between pre-Me Too is there was considered a spectrum of behavior. Now there is no spectrum acknowledged, and if you simply set your toe into the Me Too world, nobody wants to have the debate. Nobody wants to be the spokesperson explaining why this is different from Harvey Weinstein. Even though it is different, who benefits from having that conversation? Nobody. And I've been in these corporate boardroom situations. They don't have the stomach for even having the conversation.
Yeah. What about rank and file employees? I mean, a lot of people meet at work. I mean, are there going to be corporate edicts that that's...
It depends. If you're the manager and the person works under you, then
there's another problem.
There's a corporate policy. That's the policy.
If you're in a position...
If you're exactly equal, are you allowed? If you have the same job title?
This is what's being defined.
If you don't report to each other,
if you don't report to each other.
If you're in a position of power, that is the variable.
If you don't report initially, you eventually do report to the person. I can tell you that.
The problem is, even if you don't report to the person, maybe one person has more power than the other, and there's a view that you're going to ultimately...
Yeah.
It's complicated.
And be transparent about it. Once it's actually in place, supposed to tell somebody, and then they can decide.
What we don't know is whether they... I mean, but I don't think there's evidence or even accusations that they were not telling the truth.
I don't think
instance.
so. Right.
No. That it seems to be on face value not terribly, as I said a minute ago, exotic. And when things get exotic, when there's voicemails and texts and there's marriages involved, it becomes a whole different thing. And that doesn't seem to be the case here superficially.